It's just a workshop. Michelle, would you lead us
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks for coming. So this is the rescheduled site plan review workshop from, was it Wednesday, Monday? Monday.
The 14th.
The 14th. Scott, thanks for coming.
Yes, thanks for the invitation.
Of course. So who's going to lead us through this?
Well, we can start from your questions from last time, or we can go back to reviewing what we did at your open meeting at the end of August.
Well, being that a resident did have some questions about this, maybe we should answer his questions, or, I mean, everyone's got the handout, but maybe you can reiterate.
I'm not sure what you were able to accomplish on Monday. I apologize. I have a copy.
Okay.
Thanks, Bud. But I understand there was some stated questions, and those were conveyed through the minutes of the meeting to us. And so we thought them through and come up with some responses. But perhaps you want to go back to discussing exactly what was presented and sort of reiterating the original goals of the project, because it seems as though some of those questions were based on some information that didn't seem relevant. And so I would think that starting over at site plan review could perhaps clear some of that stuff up ahead of time. That's up to you. You want to,
Do you have the large site plan, the plat? Could you bring that out and just maybe
yeah.
put it on the table and we can make reference to it as necessary?
Well, and my understanding that is that a review was already submitted to the county. So presumably that's something that the town board needs to see.
We reviewed the site plan previously at the last regular meeting,
Right.
Mr. Barton.
Right.
And the paperwork had to be in 7 days ahead before the meeting, so everything was already reviewed. So, again,
We didn't conduct a legal site plan review.
I don't know what a legal site plan review is, other than reviewing a site plan at a legal meeting, and we did that.
That's what tonight is the workshop to do the site plan review.
Tonight is a special meeting.
Tonight is not a special meeting. Tonight is the workshop
Continuation
to
of
do
the
the
special
site
meeting,
plan
and the
review.
workshop on Monday.
Continuation of the special meeting.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it
Well,
is.
no, what-
It said that it was,
In the newspaper.
First of all, there's nothing posted outside.
it was, it is.
There's nothing posted outside.
I
This is
believe
the
when we were here on Monday the
continuation
14th,
of-
It says
we
to adjourn until September 18th at 6:30 p.m. pending the availability of Scott Barton. Otherwise, it will be at the regular meeting. And this was a special meeting workshop, and it was postponed until, so in my book,
Well, I'm not calling a special meeting. This is a workshop.
okay.
So let's
But the
do the
board
site
agrees
plan
that it's
review.
a special meeting, so
I'm sorry?
I said the rest of the board agrees it's a special
Yes,
meeting.
well, it's an adjourned session of what we were doing on the 14th, which was noticed as a special meeting, so.
I'm not calling a special meeting.
You
We're
don't
not
have
in
to,
it.
it's already,
Somebody needs to, I'm not participating in an illegal meeting. If we,
It is not a
Today,
illegal
it's
meeting.
it's an
if we
adjourned
said-
session of what we started on the 14th because Mr. Barton didn't appear that.
we're here this evening to do a site plan review.
That's right, let's get on with it.
Let's get on with that.
So, we had some questions. On the 14th, Mr. Novak is here tonight. He had raised some issues. And you have had an opportunity to review the minutes of that meeting, as I understand. Is that right, Mr. McGavin? Yeah. And you formulated some answers to some of Mr. Novak's questions. So maybe we ought to just use the responses to those as a starting point, and then we can see if that prompts any additional questions or issues that might be forthcoming. How's that? The first question, one of the questions that came up from Mr. Novak's comments was the use of the building as a shelter-in-place facility, I believe, and also as a recreational facility, and the adequacy of the provisions that have been made in the site plan for those uses. So,
Right.
would you like to address that?
Yeah, and that's really the first misconception that was represented in those statements, because I don't recall, maybe the town board can refresh my memory, I don't recall ever considering either a shelter or a recreational facility as a part of this design, knowing early on that it was neither feasible from an area standpoint, nor could you afford the extents to which that would create a project. And we, at your direction, I think back in over a year ago, when we were doing the study, honed in on only the requirements of the town and the court system. And we stayed in that course throughout the development of the project, understanding full well that the site wouldn't support it, and the money that you had available that you wouldn't support it, so you make a choice. I think that was a fair choice that you had on that at that time to these. And so based out, I think the rest of the stock or ways of gathering money for that Smith's might be the
Clarify.
I mean that's
I
think just
well,
a little
possibly.
bit.
I think this was the futility by what that law
Right.
is. That's why I thought Mr. Novak just thought that this is what
Oh.
continuity by over the
Yeah,
law.
local law, local laws 4 and 5, which created the local municipal service area and placed this particular lot next to the top of the barn, which in that new MSA had a purposes within laws. What sense could be add activities to be conducted, things, and what like a lot of things. I'll liken it like a charter for a corporation. Sometimes when you're creating a corporation, in the business clause of being a certificate of corporation, it might include this whole laundry list of things that a corporation might engage in. But that doesn't mean the corporation is going to engage in all those things. It just means that when those are activities that are permitted just the corporate entity to engage, that are so they don't engage in what we would ultra vires, so the acts that are inside the scope of what they were chartered to do. And similar to that, what we created this law, creating the municipal service area, we kind of threw in a bunch of things. One of them would be like a recreation area, maybe, and a county shelter, if that was necessary. But that doesn't mean that a building to be constructed was going to be constructed with an eye toward fulfilling those needs or meeting those particular purposes. It's just a permissible use within the district, but not necessarily the building itself was not designed to be constructed.
But thanks for that clarity. I would say the building itself is not, nor ever was intended to satisfy those kinds of uses. And even though it may have been permitted over the law, which was not even a part of the design of this project, right? Not all of that is a whole separate issue that you are dealing with separately. We're not a partial to your creation of zoning.
Right.
Can I say something?
Mm-hmm.
When they were going to do it before, I was town member, I took one for the board decided that it would not be used as a shelter. That was decided many years ago, and they decided it was not going to be used as a shelter. It's not.
It seemed to be clear at the beginning of our involvement that was the case. I haven't known the history.
Yeah, because the original plans back then did include hours, kitchen, and everything else. And then the board decided that they did not want that, and it was not going to be used as a shelter, so that is deleted onto the original plans.
The reasons for that being that it was not considered necessary because the schools would be used closer.
Right. Yeah, if the need arose to have a shelter, you would have to build something much larger than you would have. I mean, there's no need for you to have a building of that size. No.
And to get to that, and we signed a contract with this group to do something new town hall. No recreation center, no shelter, no airport,
Does everybody know who this gentleman is?
No.
Okay, could you please,
My name is Clemens MacGyver. I'm working with Scott on this project.
And can you please state your qualifications so everyone can know what your titles are?
I'm a project manager. I have Masters of Architecture, a Bachelor's of Construction Science, Associates of Architecture, Technology, and about 30 years' experience doing this stuff.
Mr. Bartley? Could you state your
Oh,
qualifications?
I'm an architect, state of New York, and I am 1982 graduate of RPI, private practice since 85 in Cobleskill area. Okay, so, in those cases, we went about our design work in that manner, so we could satisfy those criteria in a way that would still be affordable for the town. And a lot of the things that we're talking about in this are certainly up to the town and up to the town's discretion. They're to be performed by the town to the greatest extent. And so that our definition of those things, to the extent it was necessary in detail, was not required, was not requested. We're trying to deal with the issues of the building proper and the services, utilities, and septic system that support that building, and the requirements that were requested from the county planning board. County planning board requested specifically the information about the handicap parking, that be allowed, the accessible parking, that be indicated more clearly. We've illustrated that clearly, and that we show a development of the site utilities, that we prove that the septic system would work and fit and, situate and not, and prove the suppositions that were made in design.
Scott, is it on this plan somewhere showing that the handicap zones, including the parking zones, are paved? Can you explain that?
Yeah, see, right under your left hand, Sandy, this illustration right here that says the post-mounted accessible signage, the limits of the concrete surface showing that paved area directly in front of the entrance.
Where is this on the site plan? Is it page one or page two?
It's right there.
Is this on the first page or the
This
second?
is the first sheet,
Street.
right on the cover sheet, yeah, and then that's indicating the area that would be right here in front of the entrance.
Okay.
And the middle, it's two van accessible spaces. It's handy that way. You don't have to provide two, but it's not a hardship for you. And the middle aisle lines up with whatever other access comes from whatever other parking there is on the site. Now, there was a question about number of parking spaces that are capable within this footprint. And there was a statement that 28 was shown, actually 27 are shown. Thanks for the bonus, but nevertheless, we had just indicated 27 here. It's a gravel parking area except for the ADA parking plan. It would probably not be lined, like this one out here, even though it's paved, it's not lined.
Right.
But that if one were to maximize the occupancy or maximize the use of that we could easily park 27 or 28, which met the demands of the building, but there could be overflow of up to 9 more. You can see there's plenty of area to develop into parking that's not delineated in that plan. So we used a standard metric of 1 space per 4 seats in a place of assembly, and we add that to 1 space per 250 gross square feet of office area. Those two metrics together produce a requirement of somewhere about 24 spaces, depending on how you round. All right, so we round up and always err to the side of caution and try to increase that as possible. So one might imagine that you had a very popular meeting some night where everyone wanted to attend. And it happened to come on the same night that the assessors were doing a, what do you call it, a reassessment, or grievance night or something, and I mean, there's 23 parking spaces tonight occupied. So, I mean, add, something like that, you might hit 36. But it seems perfectly logical that that would be a reasonable limit. You can exercise your right to use less if you'd like. You have overflow on the adjacent parcel should something more extraneous take place. The other thing that has come up is how do we get across this drainage ditch, successfully? And it seems that somewhere in about 7 or 8 years ago, there was another project that had nothing to do with us. It went south, but as a part of that, there was that sluice laid and that improvement made, I guess, under full permit and appropriately permitted, and the driveway was installed, and there were sluices put across the stream, or whatever you'd like to call it there, that are adequate to take the water line from one side to the other. I mean, Art Logan knows of that and reported that to us. So he was under DEC permit at that time and completed that work successfully long before there was such a thing as a SWIP, long before those regulations came into focus as they are today. So one might imagine that it is an existing condition and has nothing to do with this, and that's your choice to make. If we need to add some additional road material to that and disturb that in any way, we of course protect it, and we could, increase the area accordingly and still not exceed the 1 acre. But, I mean, I make the argument that it is an existing condition. It was represented to us as having been there for a good length of time. Those are the anecdotes that I have been privy to. So
So we're clear, because we don't want to be vague about this. Mr. Novak, in his comments last time, raised some issues about the fact that some of these other improvements were going to exceed the 1 acre of disturbance that would then make this project subject to the stormwater pollution prevention plan.
right. Well,
And that's what we're talking about now.
First of all, this question that came up about